Hemshech Ayin Beis, up to the 19th Discourse, chapter Ayin Beis, chapter 72, the bottom of page Kuf Lamed Daled, Discourse 19 is said on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, Tofrei Ayin Gimel, almost 100 years ago. And this mimer is Anila Deidi V'Deidi Li, which is not so common for a mimer of Rosh Hashanah. It's usually a Elul mimer, but nevertheless, that's what it is. And to sum up where we are. So, in concrete terms, we've been explaining the 5 levels of Baruch Sha'amar, as they are in the 5 levels of the Makifim, of the transcendent energy. Remember, the point of departure here is, he's been discussing the effect of transcendence, of Makif, of Makif, Seviv, on our existence. The discussion began with, which of course followed the discussion of immanent energy, which is within existence. The discussion Tehiri Ilah, the Igul Hagadol, the great sphere, which is the energy that surrounds all of existence, Makif Kloli, before the Tzimtzum. What remains after the Tzimtzum, there's the surrounding sphere. Its impact was the impact on Mesiras Nefesh in the body, and our bodies are able to give themselves. The second Makif is the Makif HaKloli after the Tzimtzum. This is Ak. Its impact is on the world, Boyev and Nishtachava, Kol Kaimel Flanechim Nishtachava, which is the whole world has a certain element of bittul, though it's concealed. It's revealed only in its life force. Pnimi Yisak, its effect on the souls is an effect of the bittul of Amunah, simple Amunah, the bittul to the Baal HaRotzon of Nasav and Nishma, Mesiras Nefesh of the soul. Right. Then comes level 3, Keser Vatzilus. Now we're going into the specific desires, the specific transcendence of each world, Keser Vatzilus. Its impact is the Ru'usa Deliba and Ava Musutera, is the hidden love and the desire of the heart, which is a little closer, more revealed, but still a transcendent impact on souls. And that like in awakenings of tshuva, hirhurei tshuva, and other impact that it has on our spiritual lives. All this is beyond the structure of what we have when we're alive, and that we're breathing, and that we are manifesting the divine energy within existence. So all these add an element of awakenings and reminders and the signposts, something that is come out of the system that's elevating the system. So that's the 3. Before then he continued, before we get to Kesav, Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya, each one is also specific to each world. We go now until he goes into the discussion that these are the levels, as he began in chapter 69, the beginning of 69. What he said was that these are the levels that we say in Birchas Yotzer. Before Shema, so we say the following. 1 second. Let me get this right. 69, right here. So he says that these levels of these ksarim, this is what we say, Birchas Yotzer, Elokei Olam b'rachamecha rachem aleinu adenu zenu, tzur mizgavenu, mogin yeshenu, mizgiv ba'adenu. He says, adenu zenu is makif of malchus of Atzilus, tzur mizgavenu, and others are the 3 makifim of the worlds of Biyah. So that's all he said. In order to explain this, he went back to the source, to how desire of the worlds begins in general, the evolution from Ein Sof to existence. And explained that in the 5 levels of Baruch Sha'amar. Baruch Sha'amar Elokei Olam is in the simple and the Ein Sof, in the seamless and shapeless field of energy. Ola b'ritzene, a desire arises, a specific desire arises that connects it, some connection to existence. It's still beyond and distant and so on, but it's something rather than just Ein Sof. That's Baruch Sha'amar Elokei Olam, one Amira. Then comes the level of Galiv Galifu, that turns into Shir Atzmei B'Keir, that he actually envisions that which will come. The 10 hidden spheres, that's Baruch Hu. So now we have a Hu, that which is concealed should not be revealed, because in the first step, nothing is even concealed. It comes from a state that doesn't even have any awareness of itself. He said even to himself it's not revealed. Meaning it's beyond awareness, it's beyond consciousness. Now you want it to become conscious of it, that's Baruch Hu. Your mamshich, everything Baruch is amshach. Then comes Baruch Eimer V'Oisa, that's Ak. That's the Ratzon Klali, the general desire that's after the Tzimtzum. That in turn becomes, now that's Bria de Klolos, then comes Yitzira de Klolos. Baruch, Geyser, Mekayim. This defines and begins to define the first container. And then comes Baruch Eiser Bereshis, is Atzilus. Yasiyah de Klolos, the macrocosmic Asiyah, and that is the desire as it's connected to Eris in Kalim, energies in containers. And with that he explained at the end of the last chapter, end of the last Maimer, this was all the summary of Maimer 18, Discourse 18, that he explained that this is the whole process of how it works, Rosh Hashanah, and every morning in a microcosm, how we awaken the desire, the Pnimius HaKavanah, which is the purpose of it all, is the revelation. So the revelation, that is the deeper level that comes from the Atzmus. That's the reason for it all, the inner Kavanah. But to awaken the Ratzon for Elamus, which is those 5 steps I just described, starting from Baruch Sha'amar V'Haya Elam, that requires, through our work, if on its own it would be asleep, the world. It would be minimal energy. Through our work, we arouse the deeper desire, so it becomes, we wake up from sleep, and it's a dynamic world. And a world that has the capacity to reveal within it. It's not just minimal energy. It's not just what we call like a coma state, a comatose state, where it's surviving simply the vital organs are functioning, but everything else is a vegetable. So that's a state where there is no avodah. That's a world that is completely unconscious of its spirituality. I think this is a good way to describe it. So it exists, but it's unconscious, like being in a coma. The minimal energy is there. And to awaken that comes from our work, the Kiyah Shefer and so on, or in every day when we acknowledge it through our efforts, that we become the flame that flickers, that flame that illuminates a dark world, basically. That comes from a deeper level, and that is Zayim Tchilas Masecha. That today is the beginning. Tchilas Masecha doesn't mean the beginning of your creation; it means the purpose of your creation. Zikaron L'Yom Rishon, and that is a reminder to a thing that needs reminder to rejuvenate, reinvigorate the energies of Yom Rishon, of that first desire to create the worlds.
What if we say every day something similar, analogous to the...
Moda'ani would be, he doesn't say it here, Moda'ani is usually...
That's analogous to the shofar on a day-to-day thing?
Yeah, to Malchus, to Kabbalah's Malchus, Moda'ani, on a very basic level. It says that elsewhere. I'm just looking here. What does it say here? Every day. Let's see.
Wow.
Yeah. Where is it? Oh, by sleep, by night, where he says like this. Okay. Then the Gan Eden, the doors by night are closed in Gan Eden, and so just kiss to the Chayusa. We just have, what do we say, a shadow of life. Yeah, and he doesn't say here how. He just it's basically it's the same idea that when we're aware, when we say Moda'ani and we acknowledge, we become spiritually aware of our purpose. The world ceases to be a comatose state. On its own, Seder Shtalshlus, the energy diminishes till there's darkness. So left on its own, the world is a dark place. That's what you find, like you see. In the beginning it says, then God says, so we have the minimal R. And we bring R, the real R, that elevates the world. So think of the world as a comatose state on its own, which is the fact. We have 7 billion people walking on this planet, and spiritually speaking, most are in a coma. They go through their functions, their priorities are completely material and self-oriented, with here and there a glimpse. The whole point of, obviously, is this elevating the universe existence to something beyond the comatose state. The question is, where do we stand? From 1 to 10, how much are we in a coma and how much awake are we? Before L'chaim and after L'chaim, you could add that in the questionnaire. Simchus Torah, not Simchus Torah. Then there's also two states. Now, you know that you're in a coma, or you don't know you're in a coma. That's also two madrigas. And that's not even Asir Ruchnis yet. Fine. We now resume bottom of page Kuf Lamed Daled after the summary. Okay? I think that was
Why would that be Asir Gashmis? Knowing, why is that not Asir Ruchnis?
Okay, maybe Asir Ruchnis. We could argue that point. Look, the fact that we live 99.9% of our lives materialistic and self-oriented, that's more or less Asir Gashmis and Chumris. When we have an awakening or a sense, that's a sense of Ruchnis. I mean, I call it Asir Ruchnis. You could call it like he says, it's Hurei Tshuva. You can define it all the way to Ak or to Keser Vatzilis. I mean, if you really want to map it out.
At least Asir Ruchnis when we're davening or learning, right?
Yeah, well, as soon as you look up and you say there's more to life than me, you're already acknowledging. The question is how much. First of all, how primitive it is. How much does it remain with you?
Was invested in there.
Right, and how much does it remain within you? How much is hidden? But just for the record, what we experience, the coma state, is the tip of the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. Not even that. Ha'ara, ha'ara. And we think that is reality. We're all excited about it. It's very uplifting. Okay. So now we travel upward. The good news is, there's only one way to go. No, it could always get worse. Yeah, but but relatively. Okay, look. I'm saying when you're in the valley, it can go a little deeper. There's this, but really, there's a lot more to go up than to go down. That's what I would say. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. We have here a Bezdin, 4 people. Paskent. Ani l'deidi v'deidi li. The Frierdiker Rebbe summarizes this parak like this. The last one, he says, was the 5 makifim of Naran Chai. Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chai Yechid. I should have added that. In the beginning, yes, and then Mafteach in the beginning. So there's the summary, says, Teichen has cholos ha-maimer. So Ani l'deidi b'chin is Bas Mekabel. The level of Bas, the daughter, the recipient. I should have added that those 5 levels in Baruch Shamar is also Naran Chai, Yechida Chaya, Nefesh Ruach Neshama, Neshama Ruach Nefesh. Yeah, and I want to say, yeah, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote those. Yeah. But Technas Cholas HaMaimer, so it's a little. Sometimes it's the whole Maimer, sometimes it's the beginning of the Maimer, and you can study those as usual. You can study that description as well.
And the 6th is Gashmis.
The 6th is not on the map, according to this right now. We'll see what the 6th is. The 6th is, it doesn't have to be told to us. You need a map to get somewhere. Where you are, you don't need to be a map for that. I will say the following. I wanted to add one thing. In the explanations of Baruch Shamar, I had mentioned there's 2 types of discourses. And a lot of the Havana and understanding, and I'm writing up a little piece on this, of understanding the levels here are very clear in the other description where he talks about it starting from Ak. Everything starts from Ak. Baruch Shamar in Vahel is Ak, and so on. Ak, actually, all in our Netzilis. This is based on the Siddur Arizal, that Arad Lo, Reshad Lo Yisyad, but it's really beautiful explanations. The Mittler Rebbe has fascinating explanations how the unconscious moves into the conscious, how it's not aware of itself. I mean, a lot of what we talked about, he speaks very directly. How you know something's there, but you can't put your finger on it. He calls that who. That's when you say something who. He gives examples, beautiful examples there of matan b'seser. The one of the higher levels of tzedakah is that when you give and you don't know who you're giving to, you don't know who's doesn't know. Right. So he says that's the level. He discusses that is somewhat like the level of Reshad Leis Yada. You know there's something there, but you don't know who it is. That's who. So it's like somewhat like the unconscious type of. He speaks about examples of a mitzvah, chachma ma'ayin timotza mitzvah. You find something in the street, you know someone lost it, but you have no idea who. And even according to halacha, you don't even have to find the person. But means that there's many things in life, you know that something is there, but you don't know what it is. And then there's a state where you don't even know there's something there, and even it doesn't know it's there because it's not a state of consciousness and awareness. I mean, it'd be very fascinating. We learned the Shari Tshuva here. Learning those Maimarim helped a lot understanding the levels here, and especially how it emerges from that state to the next state. It's very powerful stuff. Because it really also gives us a good example that God did want a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious. That's the bottom line. Like I keep saying about Etzem. That he wants our Etzem to connect to another. He doesn't just want you and I to be nice to each other.
So that's where the analogy to tzedakah goes away, because you gave a preferred level of this is not a preferred level.
But nevertheless, we're still connecting. And you're still connecting. It's true. Look, you don't need to know that you're giving me the tzedakah for it to have its impact.
Better for not you not to me.
Right.
No.
Right.
In the other case, it's better to connect and
No, you need all. You need everything. The point of the matter is that we don't want to, we're not mistapik b'mu'at, we're not satisfied with the minimum, we want everything. So when the Alter Rebbe said, I don't want your Gan Eden, your Elam Haba, and so on, I want only Atzmus, the Rebbe would add, and if you really, the whole picture is we want that, and then we want it back in Elam Haba, and in Gan Eden, and in Giluyim, and all the way relating to us. That's the bottom line. All the way. Exactly. And in Kalim also. Yeah, and also and Eir still represents its source. It's just that it's identifying. It's like it's indulging you, and it's seer, so to speak. And then there's Kalim is really the reality that we would call Muvdal, Zulas. I mean, all these examples, like a teacher, before he starts teaching, there's the level where he starts preparing to speak to the student, to the child. Then there's actually the child, and there's the way it goes into the child. It's really, on the level of a model for education or a model of communication, it's how you bring something from a place that's completely beyond to be received by an outside entity, and that both can coexist. It's really what it comes down to. I mean, everything in life is really that negotiation. Every relation, absolutely. Parent to child, husband to wife, friends, God and us. It's a relationship. It's a relationship, and that's where the relationships suffer most, when there's an imbalance. Right? Either way, the key is to have like this. I always put it like this: two complete circles, and then they come together, and it's like that. Not like that. Like that. So there's a unity, but there's still circles, but now they're stronger. Like a chain, actually. Seder Shtalshus is like that. So you break the chain, you have two individuals. They eat each other up, you have one. You don't want one. You want harmony within diversity. That is the standard. And now we have to work on trying to get there and see where we stand compared to that. So now, Anila Deidi V'Deidi Li, bottom of Kuf Lamadal 134. Discourse 19. Anila Deidi V'Deidi Li, I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me, Harei B'Sheshan, who grazes B'Sheshanim, among the roses. V'Isa B'Zoyar, it says in Zohar, what is Sheshanim? Sheshanim ba'alachas. Sheshanim ba'alachas. Sheshanim means Sheshanim, that they study. Sheshanim means from studying, from learning. Mishnah, meaning they're repeating and they're relearning halachas, laws of Torah. V'tzarech lahavin ma shayach in Sheshanim ba'alachas la'anil deidi. Anil deidi li, whether it's a metaphor or poetry. I am to my beloved as my beloved is to me. Hareya, who grazes among the roses. So it fits to love. But now the Zohar suddenly throws in that it's learning Torah, takes it away somewhat from the romantic element, so to speak, or seemingly. So what's the connection? Tanila Deidi. Ga ma'u inyan hareya b'sheshanim. And what's the Zeroya? I said grazing, right? Zeroya is like a, Pashatzach. It's grazing. It's like a raya is also, the noun of raya is actually is a shepherd. But raya here it means just the shepherding. It means it must be another word than grazing. I think grazing is the right word anyway. So what he's saying here like this: what is this thing of raya b'sheshanim? The mara shayach b'rabbi tzayin. The idea of grazing is related to tzayin, to sheep. what's the connection here? Haraya b'sheshanim, using such an expression. You could say picking roses, walking among roses, smelling the roses. What's the Raya b'sheshanim? Well, to understand this, we need to preface what we explained earlier. But hey, Madreg is the Baruch Sha'amar ad Baruch Eiseh Bereishis. In the 5 levels from Baruch Sha'amar through Baruch Eiseh Bereishis. Shein hey makifim daran chai. They are the 5 makifim, not primim, the transcendent forces of nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yechida. This is the level of the Ratzon Pashut. That's the first desire, the seamless desire. That's level 2. That you envision. He envisions, he estimates in his power, his ability. That's the first 2 levels. In the infinite light before the tzimtzum. And the 3 levels of Bria, Yetzirah, Siyah, macrocosmic after the tzimtzum. These are the 5 makifim of Naran Chai, and the 5 levels that are Baruch Sha'amar, Baruch Hu, Baruch Eimer V'Eiseh, Baruch Geizer Mekayim, and Baruch Eiseh Bereishis. That's a summary of what we learned. So now in chapter 72 he continues. And now, corresponding to these 5 levels in Baruch Shamar, this is now when we finish Psukkah de Zimra, after Yishtabach. After Oz Yasha and Yishtabach, then comes Bichus Yetzer. And now we also say, so corresponding to these first type 5, we have now these 5. What are they? So now he says 5 levels, and he's now going back to what he discussed in the beginning of chapter 69, where the whole discussion from 69 here till 72 was about Baruch Shamar. And now he's going back that this connected these, corresponding to these, are these 5. And now he explains. So what are the 5? So he explained the 5. There he said there he talked about 4, but clearly there's 5 levels there. There he said that Adenu Zenu, Tzur Mizgavenu, Mogin Yishenu, Mizgav, and they're all makif. Adain, Tzur, Mogin, Mizgav. That these were the makifim of Atzilus, Malchus Atzilus, and then Bri Yitzir and Asiyah. Clearly we also have the 5th one, the first one, which is going to be corresponding to it. So let's see how he explains it. There you go. The first step is we start Elokei Olam, the God of the world. That's the level of Baruch Sha'amar, Misha Amar v'Haya Olam. The one who says, and there'll be a world. What is that? B'chinas Atzmus Ein Sof, Bal HaRotzu Shalamal B'chinas Rotz. Actually, it's a lot higher than Baruch Sha'amar. Yeah. Okay, let's explain, but it's going to go there. So this is referring to, we say Elokei Olam, you're referring to the source itself. This is the level, he says, Amisha Amar v'Haya Olam, the one who is speaking. Baruch Sha'amar, you say Baruch Sha'amar, who's the speaker? Who is Amar v'Haya Olam? So that's the level, he says, in his Atzmus, and Bal HaRotzu Shalaman B'chinas Rotzen. Baruch Sha'amar v'Haya Olam is already a Rotzen. But who is the Amar? And he goes further. This level is even higher than Eir, even higher than the field of energy. If you remember, he spoke that Eir doesn't even have any name or shape and form at all. There's no definition. Not a muhus. He said this in 69 and earlier, obviously. The word there he used was, it's not an inyan prati. Whereas Rotzen is already an inyan prati. Rotzen means Rotzen. So now he continues, explains this. Because it explains elsewhere, the Atzmus einonu yecholim lechanes b'shem shum shem v'kinui. Chaz v'shalom. Explains this, with the Atzmus you cannot describe with any name or any description. Kinui could be description. Kinui sometimes means Shema Kinui means like almost a nickname. But that's what he's saying here. Here it means there's no name or description, God forbid. Ki kol shem hu tayar davar. Ma. Because every name is a description.
Restrictive.
Tayar davar ma. It's describing, depicting something. Shemetayas hadavar hanikra b'Hashem hu. That describes and identifies the thing that's called with that name. So as soon as you say something is this, you're immediately saying it's not that. That's what a name is. Now, the truth is, he says Mokem Acher. Earlier, if you remember, he discussed this also, but he discussed it in Oyer. He said that Oyer, you can't call any name. And when you call it a name, that's already his pashtus Oyer, not Etzem Oyer, and that's Ratzon. So if you're giving a name, it's already a name, but it's a Ratzon, it's also all Gilui HaEtzem. Here he's referring to Atzmus. See, here is, I would say, one of the only, not the only, there's a few places he's spoken about Atzmus. He spoke about Atzmus earlier on. But here clearly he's speaking about Atzmus that's higher than Oyer. If you want to know, is this really Atzmus that we talk about Atzmus? I mean, it depends how you understand Atzmus. But for practical purposes, now he's talking about Atzmus that's higher than Oyer. So since you're describing something and describing something called that by that name, so you have to say that matur, the thing that's being described, the object that's being described, in some way, it's an identity, it's an existence on its own. I'm not suggesting, he's not saying that it's an existence that feels independent of God. But it means it's a Metzias Dover Ba'atzmei. It has some type of identity within itself. Sheshayach by hatfisa v'agdora be'ezeh dover. Which it's sheshayach by, it's possible. Sheshayach more than possible. Sheshayach. That's why it has you can grasp it, and it has some categorization in some particular fashion. So we say, for example, that God is infinite. The reason that's not a good, you can't say God's infinite, because infinite is a name. What means a name? You could say infinite is a name that's endless. No, but it's infinite, not finite. So that's already a description. The reason then, because it has some type of identity, that's why you can describe it. But with Atzmus, all this is not possible. And also the name Moyer, which means the luminary, the source of light, is also not shaykh. Also not possible to attribute to Atzmus. The Shem Moyer, because Moyer, yes, it's higher than Moyer, it's the source of Moyer. But as soon as you say Moyer, it's saying Moyer, it shows it refers, it indicates. She'etzem b'b'chinas Eir, b'etzem it's Yusei. We say something is a Moyer, you're saying that the etzem, that Moyer, is fundamentally b'etzem it's Yusei, and it's Eir. The source of Eir. The only thing is, it's not revealed light, not Eir that's coming out in a revealed way. Which is only a reflection. Rather, it's a level of etzem, but it's a moyer. But its fundamental nature is Eir. You say the sun is a moyer. Me'er is hagdelim. A luminary. The sun and the moon, two luminaries. So yes, it's far superior to the light that comes out of the sun, which is just a reflection. The sun, we know, is all-powerful in the sense, all the energy that it has, the immense heat, the immense energy, and so on and so forth. But it has an identity. A sun is not a moon. A sun is not an earth. A sun is not a table. What's identity? Moed. Its identity is that it's a source of light. Someone said, does it have more things in it? Yes, it has more things. But everything can be described. Even if we don't know all the elements of its personality, it still has personality. In Atzmus, you cannot say such a thing. Even though, call it divine energy, or whatever that comes out of Atzmus, is transmitted from him. Ein ha'atzmus b'chinas moyer. Nevertheless, Atzmus is not in the state of a moyer. Like it says elsewhere, maybe he's going to say it here. The loize ikir, it's not the primary role. First of all, it's not b'chlal. You can't describe Atzmus as moyer. He has the power also to transmit energy. But not like the sun, that doesn't have anything else. Atzmus cannot be described as if like he's more light than he is darkness. Or he's more light than he is a stone. All that can be attributed to him. And that's why the example of light of the sun from the sun is not yet a complete, perfectly aligned example for Ein Ein Sof, as he discussed earlier. Earlier he discussed the reason was because the Shemesh is Mukhrach, but Mukhrach means because that's what its identity is. So in a sense, it's defined by its giving life. It doesn't give life. It's not functioning what it's supposed to be doing. That now he's going to say because the Shemesh is called a Moyer. That Shemesh b'chinas Moyer shezeu kol mahusei. Because the sun is a luminary, and that's its entire mahus. That's its entire personality. V'atzmus einu b'chinas Moyer, and Atzmus you cannot define as being a luminary. So the similarity to the example of the sun is how the light doesn't affect the source, how the light is only a reflection, how the light is just revealing and nothing else of the source. Okay, I'm just... My point I want to make is that when we use these examples, I think people make this mistake, I've seen this, they say, Oyer Ein Sof, so we think we know what light is. And now it's not correct. Oyer Ein Sof is just a word. It could be defined as light, energy. When we use sun, or we use the soul's energy, or other energy, we're just trying to understand the properties of how God transmits. If you really say Eir, I would say the most perfect translation of Eir would really be transmission. That's why the Mukabolim used Eir, and he said that the Chakim used Shefa.
Shefa is more transmission.
It's correct, but the content of it, no, that's why it says, but why, that's why I asked, why do we use Eir? Because Eir captures the essence of the transmission and doesn't affect the source.
Emission, not a transmission. Transmission would be more shefa. Emission would be more.
Yeah, we said that. Yeah. Transmission is usually something. Transmission is usually the interface takes energy here and transmits it. I did say that. Emission, right? A divine emission would be the real description. Correct. We had the whole thing of this. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, emitting. The thing is, once you get out of Atzmus, then you can use transmission because every level transmits to the next level, and it makes more sense when you say, let's say, Atzilus is more transmitter than an emitter. Yeah. This is Chachsidus talks. You know how many hours we've discussed this here? Yes, we are, and we're not. The answer is yes and no, because you can't be talking about there's no other entities. It's Elokus as it manifests it's like saying we give names to God based on His activities, His actions. When He's going to war, He's called Svakis. When He's giving Chesed, it's Kael. When He's the Din, is Elokim. So Elokim, yes, is it referring to? It's referring to, there's only one God. The question is, can you define God by Elokim? No. You could say God manifests in a form of Elokim, or Tzelem Elokim. You have to always, when you distinguish, the key thing to know is everything is ultimately Atzmus in there. The question is this identification of Atzmus, or is it a manifestation of Atzmus? Or is it a creation of Atzmus? That's the thing. Atzmus is within everything. So you could say Atzmus is within here, but this is not Atzmus. Remember we said Tov is Bay. Less man the Tov is. Nothing can grasp it. It grasps everything. So if you're talking from Atzmus perspective, everything is in there. But you cannot call Atzmus a Moyer. That would be incorrect. You could say air comes from. Remember, you're talking Atzmus. The one thing you have to keep in mind all the time. We're not even talking about Lifnei Atzimsum. Simply identities, names, anything we use as grasp, anything that we feel comfortable to describing things doesn't belong there. That's why it's impossible to talk about. The only thing you could say it doesn't have any of that. And you know that even that's what it says. Shlilas. What does it say in Samach Vov? Shlilas achiyah v'shlilas hashlilah. Shlilas kolatem v'shlilas shlila. Shlilas hashlila. You can't, even when I just said now that God is not light, God is not a luminary, and God is not a name, even that is not enough. Because that's also a description. So to say that He is and He's not is equal to Him. That's something we could not fathom. That's impossible to understand. Understand for sure not. You can relate to it when you come to the peace that paradox is not a problem. When you come to that peace, that the structures of existence are simply just structures. And that logic is a creation. The God created such a beautiful world that logic thinks that there's nothing else besides logic. It thinks everything has to make sense. We're trapped in that reality. Now, the odd thing is that it's true too, because Torah does make sense, and God wanted logic to work.
Because it works.
Correct. But to define reality by logic and say this is it.
On a certain level, he wants to use logic. On a certain level, no.
Exactly. My point is, when you work it through well, you come to a point of understanding. It requires bittul, because, as I said, the scientists you can't expect them to go beyond. What do you want them to do? Beyond logic? If they go in the world of faith, then that's not practicing science. The truth is, we believe that rational meets super rational, and they both inform each other. But if you want to use the tools of existence, you're only going to go to the tools. That's the whole point why transcendence is such a key element. Take away makifim and only have pnimi, you're going to hit a ceiling. You're going to hit the ceiling of existence. That's going to tell you, yes, there's a God in here. God put it all, but you'll never come to a connection to anything outside of your reality. No matter you may be a perfect human being, but it's going to be a perfect human being, nothing divine. Called kedusha. You bring kedusha into the world. V'shachanti b'seicham. Shachanti b'seicham. So the v'shachanti part will not happen. It will only happen on a level that's measured to our existence. Anyway, so now we're saying like this. Now the mashal of the shemesh. Elokei Olam is not mechuven adayin. It's interesting he says adayin. Why? But no, because he's saying adayin because in explaining shemesh is a part of the step to understanding it. It's not that it's not adayin that if you understand the sun better, you're going to understand that this is true. It means that in understanding the concept of Eir, the sun is not enough. And you need to have other mishalim, and you need more, etc. You need to extrapolate. Okay. And what we describe, that when we do describe God as a moed, is because we have no other name. So when we speak about Eir, we say, who's the source of the Eir? It's Atzmus. But that's simply because we have no other name. Not because we're trying to confine Atzmus in a box called Moed. It's we have no other name. So you say, Eir, Moed. Like, Seichel, Mashpia, HaSeichel. Aval be'emes ein hashayach b'yizbarach Hashem Moed. It's a very, it's defined explaining. This is like Chassidus Chabad at its best. Explaining a level, But the truth, cannot really call. It's not possible to relate Moed to God. Like it says elsewhere at length. I'm just pointing out that sometimes it doesn't say Erich. When it says Be'erich, it means at length. No, it doesn't mean that. Because this is a topic that is discussed in other Maimorim at length, and that's what he's referring to. Okay, so now we said that.
What disqualified that?
Yeah, and what we are capable of l'chanes ba'atzmus in describing Atzmus, hurak b'shem beira, is only with the name Creator. Obviously, this is also not a sufficient name. He's just climbing the ladder here.
It's higher than water.
Yeah. Because Beira doesn't tell you anything about the entity. It just tells you he creates. It doesn't tell you he's a light. It doesn't say it's not, But that's also Leiza Ikar Elakush and Nivrim Mena Elamis. So obviously, that's also not a final description. But listen. The shame is a kinui v'tayar. See, Moed is a kinui v'tayar. Kinui v'tayar means kinui is a. What's the difference between kinui and tayar? Let's see. When you say shame, you say the four shames. You say shem ha'etzem, shem ha'tayar, shem ha'pu'ula, and then you have shem ha'kinui and shem ha'mushal. These are the different levels. Shem ha'kinui, tayar is usually a more descriptive thing of the identity of something. Kinui is a little removed from that. Kinui is almost like a description of its function. The Pa'ula is function. No. There's different things. I'll give you an example for sure. You can say, for example, sun. The word sun doesn't tell you much. Just the word sun. You say luminary, or you say the sun is a source of light. You're already talking its function. We're all talking about it, different levels of name. Later in the Maimorim, he talks about, for example, Hashem HaPa'ula. He spoke about Chacham, the example. When you say someone's a Chacham, so it doesn't mean he's giving off Chacham right now. It means he's always a Chacham. It's actually a concealed state. Even when he's not behaving like a Chacham, he's a Chacham. It's like stating this person has the personality of wisdom, or this person is a Baal Chesed, a loving person. Then there's the act of Chesed, Pa'ulas HaChesed. Anyway, relevant to here, I'm just distinguishing Kinui v'Tayar. It's two different ways. It's two different. One is Kinui, Mechana, Kinui. I'm trying to find an example of how you'd say the difference in two things. You'd say Kinui.
Yeah, it sounds like example. Kinui doesn't work so well with the Hebrew.
Okay, bottom line is, this name is not a descriptive name. It's not describing God with any particular definition. Like Moyer. If you say Moyer, it's a description. Moyer has a meaning. It's describing an activity. It's describing a faculty, an attribute called similarly. When you say creator, on the contrary, it actually shows that it's referring to God as a kadmon hamiti, the true first cause, the true primal force. Meaning kadmon, meaning, how do you say kadmon? That he has no beginning. Primeval? Primordial? It's more than primordial. It means, the primary, the first, kadmon. Kadmon usually refers to something that is the first and nothing before it. Ein lefanov, like what is lashon? It's a little more. The kadmon is not as high as that, I think. But there's a pasuk that says, Rambam brings it. He says that he's kodem ve'ein tova shekadmo leh. He's the first and nothing comes before him. So when you say that Boida, Adrabah, Boida is not referring. Not only is it not referring with a title. That's what I wanted. Kinui is maybe like a title. The Torah is a description. You can say Kinui is a title.
Basically, all Pa'ulas.
In a certain way, or they're descriptive. However in names there's different levels. Even in descriptions and product descriptions, they'll find that the product description will just give you its name, and it's short, and then it'll talk about details of it, like its specs. These are all descriptions. Each one is doing a different element of describing. So anyway, Boida refers to Kadman Miti. Because when we say something is a creator, what makes it a creator is because it is before it can be created. It's because it's the first cause. That's why he has the potential, the power to create from nothing, not something from nothing. And it also describes that he's going very high level now. That he's an existence, a non-existential type of existence. This was referred to earlier in chapter... he did mention Mitzias built to Mitzias Nimtza. Yeah, right here. End of chapter 49. I just want to say this just for the record. When we talk about Atzmus, there's generally three descriptions given. Atzmus. One is built to Mitzias Nimtza that he's saying here. Another is Mitzias Atzmusei. And another is Mechuyev HaMetzias. The Rebbe writes to Rabbi Weinberg, when he's explaining the Tanya, that these are not three general descriptions of defining Atzmus, so-called uniqueness, if you wish, but they're three different things. Not here's the place to go into them, but basically just the defining Mitzias built to Mitzias Nimtza means it's simply translated would be a non-existential type of existence. more literally mitzias, existence, but he doesn't exist in what we would call existence. We define existence, for example, something occupies time and space. Okay, now that something occupies some definition. Existence for us there are rules of existence. There are criteria. So you could say God. You can't say God doesn't exist, but you can't say he exists either, because existence would mean he exists like we understand with that criteria. So you really could say is he does not exist. That's really the best way to put it. That's mitzvah. Then mechuyev hametzias means that he must be mechuyev. He's the only thing that must be. Everything else needs a reason. In other words, you look at a tree in the forest, you don't look at it and say, oh, this tree had to exist. It exists, so it has a role to play. Mechuyev hametzias means God does not need a reason to be put there, or justify, or a need, etc., etc. But another way the Friedrich Rebbe puts it in Tzadik Dal, Hamshel Tzadik Dal, he says, everything in the material world exists, and then you know it exists. Atzmus exists, and in other words, first you observe it, and first you wouldn't know it exists unless you observed it, or some way someone proved it to you. God is not that way. God first exists, and then he manifests. So for us, manifestation comes first. First, our recognition of something exists comes first, and then we explain it. We don't sit and say, you know what? There must be a tree out there, and then you go start looking and saying, is it there or is it not there? Because there's no musts. Nothing in existence dictates that I have to be. Even human beings who may be completely selfish and self-absorbed, no one's going to say, I have to exist. Once I'm here, I'm going to make my presence felt, and I'll make sure everybody feels I'm indispensable. But everyone is intelligent enough, I have to exist? Hey, you weren't born. The world will continue on. And we see this all the time. On the Har HaZeisim, they say there's a grave that says, Pa Nimtza, Pa Nitman. Here is buried someone who thought he was indispensable. Thought the world cannot exist without him. So it's a reminder. The truth is every grave, every tombstone is a reminder of that. Now, what they live on in our hearts and souls, if they did something with their lives, is beyond themselves. That's the point. But the thing that you, as you are, your defined Dalet Amis, must exist is simply not correct. Mechuyev hametzias means it's a must exist. And the third thing is mitzusim atzmusei. That's expression in Tanya, in Ageres HaKedesh. Mitzusim atzmusei. So though these three things are interdependent, mitzusim atzmusei means that his mitzias come from within himself. So it's connected to mechuyev hametzias. That's the reason he's mechuyev hametzias. But you're already referring to something that has no cause, something that his reality comes from because he's real. That's why he exists. It's real, true reality. So there's a relationship between that and the other two. But I just am defining it because we may use these words are going to pop up. So I just wanted to. So now he's saying that Boida not only is not a descriptive thing, it actually tells us that it teaches us something. When you say God's a creator, why am I not a creator? Because I'm not a Kadmon. I have parents. My parents have parents. Boida refers to something that is a creator. That means he has the ability to create, Kadmon Amiti, and that he's an existence that it's not an existential existence. The Rebbe Rashab once said, we don't usually publicize it, but now we can publicize everything. He once said that atheists that say God doesn't exist are one step closer to the truth than believers who say it does exist, for the reason I just mentioned. No, at least they're touching, because if you really take it to the furthest level, it's a pretty strong critique on the whole religious world's perception of God. It's a God like me, except he's bigger than me, which really means, the ultimate bittul b'mitzias, when you're ready to give your whole life to God on your comfort zones and your habits and your money, and bring God with you into your bank account, not just till the bank doors, then we're talking business. Before that, then God is just more of you. That's really what it comes down to.
We have that ever too. That's his call.
True, exactly right. Remember, existence can never be mevatel itself completely, because it goes against the cardinal rule of survival of the species. So it can only come if it realizes that it's not, that this reality is not real.
That's the doctrine of mutual assured destruction.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe that they cannot destroy.
Anyway, see, you feel more comfortable in a chapter like this, right? Because this is in the Sprach was beweist. Atzmus. The problem. I know you have a problem. As soon as we leave Atzmus, the problem will start.
No, but you're not outside.
That's what the Rebbe says about the atheists.
Yeah.
That's the express, right?
Interessante word, right?
Atzmus is in you, but you're not Atzmus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even still you're part of Atzmus, but you can become one. You haven't become.
The point is that you want that that's true from the second creation happened. But then there's a whole purpose in this. That's why we said in the last chapter, then we're like in a coma state. If you're the bare minimum, what God created is a coma. Who wants to be in a coma? A vegetable in a bed. That's a state of without avodah. That's like God will renew existence that way, but it's the minimum amount of energy just to keep it going. But we're asleep, we're in a coma. The point is our awareness of it. That's the key element here. Integration of it all. Look, it's, as I said, it's not that easy to understand. Once you start climbing, let's say you become aware, and you start acclimating yourself, and your kalim become more expanded and more refined. You're able to receive more. How you actually return to lifnei tzimtzum and able to absorb that. We spoke about this all the time. That's going to come as we do it. It's not something you can fully understand. I think it's like someone explaining. Someone who's been married for 40 years is going to explain to someone who just got married what it's like after 40 years. I'm talking about a beautiful marriage, not the negative parts. You can't explain certain things like that. There's certain things that just come with the turf, come with experience. As you grow and you do what you have to do, you come to relate more and more to Atzmus. Remember that there's an Atzmus in there, so it's going to come. It's going to emerge. Remember we spoke about the Shar Chamishi. You count 49, the 50th emerge. You can't get the 50th. There's no way. God is not going to give you the 50th, and even if He did, it wouldn't help. And above all, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. It would be not yours. It would be it's not possible. It's like taking a child and giving them an experience of an adult. It doesn't work that way. Our systems have to absorb. That's how we work. The earth absorbs water, raindrops, raindrop by raindrop. It starts pouring down like a flood. It'll destroy the land. I mean, there are many examples of this. We have to respect the structure. There's no way around that. Miracles happen. You always learn Chassidus. A miracle is an aberration. It has to be malubish ultimately. It could help you for a while. You can have an inspiration, an awakening. Things, grace, whatever. Because this is not incidental. It's not just because we're being, patronizing. Oh, the little child, okay, absorb. No, because that's how the system becomes acclimated and refined to absorb godliness and climb. And we could climb. And then says Mashiach comes, kulim yedo esi. We will have an Atzmus experience. Anyway, so to continue on, B'tzid built to Mitzid, commotion is Bar Leil Perek Samach Tes, like we discussed earlier, chapter 69, B'Shem Ageres HaKedesh, in the name of the Ageres HaKedesh. Let's see what he said in Samach Tes, name of Ageres HaKedesh. The end of it, where he speaks about that it all comes with a shus, that only he could create. Right. So as we said there, that the power to create, bring something into being is only an Atzmus. Specifically, here's the next expression, because he's an existence that comes from within his own essence. That's why his power to create something from nothing. Now this alone we could spend years, if not lifetimes, explaining. So I'll just say briefly, why is this the case? So there are a few different explanations given. One is simply put, a yesh, that's not mitzusim atzmusei, that if you have a source, how could you create something from nothing? What you can do is create yesh mi yesh. Simply put, you can take a raw piece of material, gold, clay, shape it into the most beautiful vessel. You can take paint and make the most beautiful painting. You can take words and ideas and write the most eloquent book. But you can't create something literally from nothing. Now, to say a book is not is
but you can't create.
Right. Why can't you? Why can't we create something new? Because we ourselves are part of the world, part of this entity. You can't do something that's outside of it. But something is not a yesh and not an ayin, means it's not defined by anything because it's mitzvah, it defines itself. So it can do things that are completely not like itself.
Why do the two tie together?
I just explained, because a yesh, basically a system can only create an extension of its own system. And only God is not a system, so therefore he creates something that's not completely not.
Once it's unlimited,
Yeah, but unlimited meaning, you have to define what unlimited means. For example, oir could also be unlimited, but it can't create something that's not oir.
Right. So if we're talking about children.
Well, he's not calling it Ein Sof Amiti. He's talking Mitziusim Atzmusei, and Mitzius is built to Mitziusim. In other words, something that's not bound to the rules of existence as we know it. That's really the general term for it. Specifically, the things he used here is kadmon. He actually, that it's the first cause. I wouldn't say 3 levels. He just used 3 descriptions. He said, one is that it's kadmon, that is the kadmon amiti. It's the true first cause. Then he said, it doesn't exist like we exist. And then he said, in Tanya, if you look back at the end of 69, that he cites, in Tanya he says like this. Only he can create something yesh ma'ayin. And he explains what means yesh ma'ayin. A yesh that feels ein le'ila v'siba. A yesh, an existence that feels it has no source. How could it be created by something that has a source? So he says that comes from something that has no source also.
The closest thing we have to this is the fear, though.
The closest we have to it actually is our selfish sense that we have no source. That is actually comes from Atzmus itself. The bechira is whether we're going to understand the purpose of it. The fact that we feel we're self-contained entities is itself comes from that's an Atzmus. That comes, the root of that is Atzmus. If we were created by a malach, we're created. If we were put into place by something that has a source, how could it give us a sensation that we have no source? It's impossible. You can't give something that you don't have. You give your children are as yesh ma'ayin as it gets. It's a miracle. A child is born. But whether we understand it or not, it did come from your genes, through a seed, through an egg. It has personality. In other words, again, I don't say that makes it less of a miracle, but you have not given the child something you don't have. You've given the child a life that was given to you. If you were not born to your parents, you couldn't suddenly come. For example, you can't just go into a laboratory and just create a child. It's not possible. That's personality-wise, but I'm talking about. But first of all, there's things called latent genes, and then there's generational, and so on. Another thing, there's a combination. When mother and father bring together, you can create something that's very different. But again, it's within the realm. Listen, 7 billion people, billions and billions of people have lived, and Ein Partzufei and Shabbos. I'm not saying that but it's still a face. You're not going to create a malach. You're not going to create a spiritual entity. You're not going to create a son. A son as an S-U-N. That's not going to come out of a parent. They're going to create a life, a child. That's my point. There's a definition to what they create. To create something completely outside of you has to be because you are not limited by any definition yourself. That's why saying Boira is describing something that's beyond just a description. Because Boira, the fact that he can be a Boira tells you that he's not like a Moyer and so on. It's still a limited that he's going to say, but Boira is a far greater title than Moyer. Because Boira means that he doesn't have a title. That's what it means. That's why he can create titles, so to speak. Boira? On what? They do use it.
They use Moyer more than Boira.
No, it depends. It's not correct. No, this is not Chiddush. The Alter Rebbe says this word also. And the Alter Rebbe for sure says Moyer is not a title. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, but also this. I have to look up. This is said. This is definitely an Alter Rebbe's Maimorim. I don't know the length. Arichas. Okay. So anyway, so we have like this.
So we have Kadmon, and now we're in Kadmon, but absolute start, but in existence there's no...
Built to Mitzias Nimtza, non-existential existence. Mitziusim Atzmus. Yeah, that's the 3 expressions here.
Yeah. So we're kind of moving Kadmon, his own unknown existence from himself, gives him the ability to create.
Well, right now he's using the Gersa Kodesh, saying, what he quoted earlier, that I think I skipped the line. No, it's a no. Let me just go back a second. What did we say? Yeah, no, I didn't skip a line. I didn't get there yet. Commission as well. We learned earlier, chapter 69. B'shem Geras HaKedesh. Name of the Geras HaKedesh Simachov. The Koyach Hisavus U'Ba'atzmus Dafka. That the power of bringing something into being, Hisavus, creating something, is specifically in Atzmus Mishum de Mitzusim Atzmusei, because his Mitzias is Atzmusei from his essence. That's why it's in his power and his ability to create Yeshmayin. Haridiyin habriya. So we see now Boira, the inyan of Briya, Vesavos, Briya, creation, and bring into being. Moira al kadmusi is Baruch Shemetzusim Atzmusei. It shows, it indicates on the primal, the original, the kadmusei is Baruch, the non-source element of Yisbarach, that his existence is from within himself. So now he's connecting them all. And because his Metzias comes from within himself, that's why his Metzias is a form of non-existential existence.
He's not Nimsa.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Everything is
I just said that you could, the way you could say it, he does not exist. So it means he does not exist. I just described what means we have criteria, what we define existence, and God is not that type of. And how do we know this? He's going here through a process of a logical process here. Boira tells you he creates, means it shows you that he has the power to create. How does he have the power to create something new? It's because he doesn't have a creator himself. He's a source, not a product. He's a producer. And that tells you that he is a kadman, that he has no source. And that tells you that because his source comes from within himself. It's going through like 3 steps. And that shows us that such an existence, that existence comes from within himself, can't be an existence like our existence. So all Boira took us all the way through that process. Because the fact that he creates something shows you that that's what he has to have. It's similar to what I said earlier. You can't see Atzmus, but you can see from his productions things that tell you that what he's not like, and ultimately what he is like, or what he's like and what he's not like, however you want to put it. You see it from the product, even though you can't see it directly. You see it from the product. Now, of course, you could ask, why can't you say the world created itself, which some people argue. The main reason is because ein dover eses atzmi. Something can't create itself. Because it's, as I said, it's bound by its own parameters. How could it suddenly create itself? I can give children, but I didn't create myself. Someone brought me to here. So how far back you go, the first parent, where did it come from? Nothing can create itself. So of course the big wise smart Alex say, so then who created God? That's their first question. That's why he's saying what he's saying. The fact that you have to say something, put it in place, you have to say that thing is not like us. Because if it's like us, you're right, exactly correct. Who created him? Then what you did was with the chelam, okay, the last car pushes the first car, and this is who pushed the last car. But that's the problem. We're thinking in terms, on our terms. So you have to conclude that something, put it here, that's not like us. So that's what he says. It's a kadmon, means it's its first cause. There's no cause of it, which in deeper means it comes. So then what is its cause? I mean, Atzmus say
First existence, first cause.
Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes they primal cause, the first existence. Kadmon meaning causeless, no cause. That teaches us something deeper. So then, what causes it? Answers: it causes itself. It's reality. Reality dictates that it should be. Like he says in Rebbe Rashab, Farankeit. That it is. When you say is, the real is that type of reality. Not it is that is negligible and possible that we shouldn't exist. Basically, the Friedrich Rebbe explains it like this: that if something, like I said before, you cannot say something must exist. If it didn't exist, it wouldn't change anything. Once it's here, it's here. Being that it doesn't have to exist, so even when it exists, you can't call it real Farankeit. Whereas Atzmus, because he must have, like Mayan, the Mayim Chaim. That's the Raya. Yeah, can't call Mayim Chaim. Yeah. So then comes deeper, since he's an existence that comes from within himself. That leads us to say that he's an existence that's entirely different than the way we exist. So all this Boira showed us these 3 steps. That's how I would put it. Okay? it's three understandings of Atzmus that are truly Atzmus, and nothing else but Atzmus has these three elements.
You have to say that his existence is not like ours, because then again you can ask the question: then who Ayin Beis then who created him, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one explanation for sure. There's others too. Look, there's a whole explanation before you get to Atzmus. Is even first it's demonstrating that existence cannot have been put here by itself, because however you twist it, the first spark, the first ball of gas. So the scientists will say, you know what's wrong with that? Was here forever, but the word forever is a very strange word. Is it really forever, or just that you have no other words? So you're saying as far back as I can go.
They say 10 billion, whatever it is, because they want to try to push it back as far as possible.
No, it's fine to do with.
10 billion is only after the spark. We're talking about.
Right.
The spark.
Yeah, they, by them it's the first Big Bang. They will say that there was some forces, maybe just a few gases, and they began this, and they began this, and created a series of motions, and now here we are. Yeah, but that's not like I said, the pushing of the flash train. It's like who the elephant is standing on whom? That's the question. Look, we're not getting now whether this is a matter of faith or logic, but bottom line is that existence definitely, if you think about it without any personal agendas of, that makes me responsible or not responsible, existence pretty much testifies to a creator. No different than a book testifies to an author and an art. I mean, it's just to the organization. No one would ever in their lives say that something beautiful was put there by itself. So why they say it, I believe his main reason is because I have no problem saying there's an artist, but to say there's a God means that he put me here, and that means I'm responsible to him. And that's what people have a problem with.
You can't say that he created it and he's doing
fine, but that's another discussion. But fine, then the question would be, why would he do that? What's the purpose? If he didn't have to create it, why would he create it and just let it go? Does he have a purpose in it? Basically, once you have a God, everything follows. Then there's design. You can't prove a Torah, but you could say they must have communicated that design to that purpose. But let's not go there. Right now, the point is, obviously a person could action zich and say, I don't accept that something that put it here. Fine. That's their, this is going with if you talk about, as I said, no person on earth would ever say a book was written by itself. It's just not. Why? Why can't you say a few balls of gases came together and did it? Because it's too organized. It doesn't make sense. It's too systematic.
We once discussed the idea of all the planets that's so far. Why did the God have to do that, right? I mean, basically, I think you could say it's because
the vastness, the awesomeness.
To show us also that there are different existences than ours.
Yeah, and also another way. Yeah.
I think that's relevant to this.
Yeah. Okay.
Do these three titles imply results?
Their existence over there is different than our existence.
Yecholus means the ability to do anything. Yeah. He says, in Tanya, the Kshash B'keicha v'yecholte. The end of chapter 69, he used the word Yecholus. It means, yes, but he's not referring specifically to his all-powerful ability. That's not what he's talking about here. What? In 69, at the end of 69, he speaks about Yecholus.
Yeah, but the question was,
it means that it's like with Alshach used to fall asleep, and since you've been the gates is Ayin Neshama. Who says? So bottom line is, now there he says at the end of 69, he speaks about Yecholus. He says it's all in the Rishus. Yecholti is Baruch. I explained to them what Yecholus is. Yecholus is a byproduct of this definition. Something that doesn't exist like we exist, something that's existing this has the ability to do things like this. But that's all. He used the word Yecholus here, but it's not. Yecholus is not the description that he's using here. He's describing Boira is telling us all about this. Definitely, that's why Yecholus functions in that way. It's not like a source. Yecholus is not mukhrach, all these things that he said before. Yecholus means that it's his ability. He has the ability to do anything. Yeah, but Keich V'chol, that's the Lashon and Tanya. Yeah, that's b'chol keichev v'cholti. That's exactly the language in the Geras HaKodesh. He's just repeating that language.
Conceptually, the omnipotence is derived from the creation. The Yehovah said he's not muchav, etc., comes from Kadmon, but the omnipotence is derived.
Well, let's put it this way: the aspect that God does not need to do anything, he doesn't mention here, but it's implicit that if something that has no source, that existence comes from within itself, that doesn't exist like we exist, it's implicit that he could do anything. But he's not focusing here on that he could do anything. This is not just that he could do anything. This is that focusing that he's a different type of reality like than us. Okay, there we continue. Well, Chayin,
the word Boreh,
this tells us, or teaches us much about Atzmus. Well, he didn't finish yet. He's just going through. Remember, all this is coming. He's supposed to be explaining here Adain, Zenu, and so on. So he's began by explaining that any name that Balarotzen. Basically, he's explaining here the level of Elokei Olam. This is the level of Elokei Olam, source. That's what he's explaining here. So there we go. So the hisavas that we see in existence that is self-contained and thinks it doesn't have a source tells us all that we just described. And because God is that way, that's why the hisavas that comes from him is also in such a way that he creates something me'ayin ve'efes hamuchlat, something completely new that has no source. Without any cause or source, that any other source that precedes this yesh. Like he says in the Geras, that above mentioned Geras HaKodesh. So bottom line is, our yeshes, there's two aspects to this. One is you could say yesh ma'ayin itself, the fact that we came from ayin, completely new entity, and the fact that we don't have a cause. Meaning we're not, well, it's actually one, I'm explaining two things in the Geras HaKodesh, which always, I have to look it up and I'm going to do a little more research. I always understood the Geras HaKodesh like this. What is he saying in the Geras HaKodesh? So the simple explanation you can say is, he's saying this world is called yesh ma'ayin. It's not ilav olol. Ilav olol would mean you have an original entity and it gets diminished and moves on. We spoke before about shefa. You have a reservoir of water. Now you have a cup of water here. This cup of water, as distant as it is from the reservoir, it's yesh miyesh. It's ilav olol. Cause and effect, it took a while. You have electricity going into your appliances coming from some source. You have chokhmah in this world, it's coming from a source called chokhmah vatzilus, or all the way chokhmah to whatever the highest levels. It may have changed in intensity. We spoke about Milo Mata in the previous. It may change in the level of energy. Even personality may change. But it's traceable. Ilav olol. Yesh ma'ayin, you're not going to be able to trace it. There's no way you can go. Exactly what the scientists come to, by the way. You come to a ball of gas, and that's it. All you can say is that this has been here forever. You have no step from the first yesh to something before it. It's like you end up at a dead end. If you're able to go, dead end. That's yesh ma'ayin. As a result of that, so the Alter Rebbe says, where is that coming from? So it has to be something that has also ein le'ila v'siba. So it can create something that's yesh from ayin. If God had a siba, God forbid, then it could create something also yesh, but yesh. Everything is a yesh. On a deeper level, you can say that means that we are not an extension of God like the water is an extension of its source, in a diminished form. Let's say concealed even. You could even say concealed. That we're godliness concealed. We're Atzmus concealed. No. Atzmus and us are not the same reality. Now you could ask, why can't we say that? For many reasons. Because then, as I said last time, then you're basically a step away from Avodah Zarah. Basically, then you're turning God into you, and then you lose the real element of being outside of ourselves. Now look, some people do create a God in their image. But we're talking here, so basically, We are not yesh mi yesh, we're yesh ma ayin in that sense. The Chassidus says ayin doesn't mean nothing. Ayin means, from our point of view, it's completely mystery. That source. How can that come? That comes because the source itself is also not a yesh mi yesh. Ein lo ilah v'sibah. He too has no cause. So he created something that basically cannot trace its cause. On a deeper level, that's just that. What I just said is an empirical description. So let me just say one more thing before I lose my concentration. The second thing is on a psychological level. We feel like we have no source. Forget about the scientific, that you can't trace it. Everything else can be traced. The water you can trace. Where did it come from? Here you can't trace it. Here's also our senses. I'm self-made. We don't even feel that we're going to die. Your mind tells you, but you don't feel like, I'm one day closer. Or I'm 20 years or 50 years from my beginning, and I'm 50 years from my end. You don't feel like that. It's not like, something that say, you throw a stone, so the stone, a few seconds that it's in the air, began and ended. We don't have that type of sensation of beginning and end. When we exist, we think we're it. Yes, we know we have parents, but you don't feel, my parents do something, it makes me move or doesn't make me move. I do whatever I want. And again, I'm not talking about the need to go to therapy because we're dependent on our parents and we need their approval and all that stuff. That's another story. I'm talking about our sensation. So this is more deeper than just. So this means in our sensation we're a yesh. We don't feel we have a source. A malach knows it has a source, and a shaman knows it's coming from somewhere. Even a tzaddik, you could say, is constantly aware that I'm not here on my own. We are not that way. We feel we're on our own. But then you come to conclusions that it's not the healthy life that way. You got to train, you got to sublimate that, you got to harness it, whatever it is. How does a hergish of something of that type of selfishness come? So you could argue before the Alter Rebbe that selfishness is all the problem, the root of all problems. Comes the Alter Rebbe and says no. That is rooted. That you want to talk about a chiddush. To me, that's unbelievable. The first part that I explained, Yashma Ein Ilah V'Siba, that I don't know what it says anywhere, but this one, he's saying that our yeshes, the fact that we feel selfish and self-interest, but sharshay comes from Atzmus, so-called self-containment. And the wisdom is that we should come to understand through our Aveda that the yesh anivra is from the yesh amiti. Now your yeshes, yes, you feel that way, but it's really because you're a godly entity, and He gave you something that nothing else in existence has. Not Atzilus, not Bria, nothing. Nothing has that sense of no beginning. You have an Atzmisdike sense feeling. That's a piece of Atzmus inside of you. It's like a gift. Bchira is compared to it sometimes. What's that? In Adam, what's the lesson there that Rambam brings? Bchira. That who Lashon Adam. That the Bora an Adam with Osik Achad Mimenu, something like that. Adam Kachad Mimenu. That the Adam should be Kachad Mimenu. So the Rambam that Alter Rebbe brings in the Kuzetera, the Achad is the Bchira. It comes from this, by the way, element, because we have an Atzmisdik element, so we have true free choice. There's no source for our choice. Because if you think scientifically, what do you mean? If I traced all the chemical forces and all the biological forces somewhere, I could figure out what every move you make. There was a French philosopher in the end of the 19th century. He made such an uproar in the church. His name was Laplace, I think. He said, it's just a matter of time. Give me every detail on a person or data on anything, and I'll tell you everything they'll do the rest of their lives. The only reason is we can't predict is because I don't know everything about you. Put everything into a computer. Why should we be different, for example, than nature? You can predict every solar and lunar eclipse till the end of time, including variations and so on. But he said the only thing is we're lacking the data. And of course, they made a big uproar. How could you say that? That means everything is predestined. Now, once the uncertainty principle came around and the indeterminism of quantum mechanics, that basically freed us from that. That means even on a scientific level, you can't predict. But our answer is not based on indeterminism. Our answer is based on Atzmus, because Atzmus is indeterministic and has no cause. He gave a piece of us. That's the ultimate explanation of Bchira that you referred to. the ultimate explanation. There are explanations on lower levels, just like there's the reasons of existence. Remember, Dir b'tachtenim is the ultimate reason, but then there's the reasons on each level in explaining God's knowing and our free will. But the ultimate is because it's coming from Ein Le'il V'Siba, so he gave us a part of that. Now he's going to say a second Chiddush. We have another thing in the Yesh that also shows us something about Atzmus. The Mitzvah is built in Mitzias Nimtza of the Yesh. Here you're going to find this is going to be fascinating. What I said before, remember I said no tree has to exist? So the Vart is like this. The fact that our existence is so negligible that we don't have to exist means even while we exist, we really don't exist because we're going to end up... That's a reflection of Mitzvah is built in Mitzias Nimtza of Atzmus also. Even that, which is such a Schwachkeit, that we don't have to exist, is telling us, revealing us that God doesn't have to exist the way we what we call existence. That's what he's going to say now, the second thing. This he said earlier, remember I mentioned to you, he said it's where did he say it? The end of 60... No, 1 second. He said it briefly before. Can't find it now. Must be in there. Yeah, end of chapter 49. He's going to say what he said, right? He's saying now. Okay. So here's the second thing that Boida tells us. So all this is coming from the word Boida, and this is all the Kavon in Elokei Olam. So if you think Baruch Shamar was complicated, you get yourself a new meditation. So he says like this. Okay. Well, he says like this. I probably have to stop. ולכן הישב יש גם כאיפה זה שנסב יש בהם ואפס המוחלט ממש בלי שום איל וסיבה חזק וגם שהיש באמס אין במציאס כלל. And also this, which the yesh, is truly not a mitzias at all. Ki mitzias yesh is chachus. Because the mitzias of yesh, the existence of yesh, is a completely new entity. V'chol is chachus u'dak koyach ha'mechadash eisei. And every new thing, all it is really the power that brings it into being, the power that's mechadash it, that gives it being. U'biladoi lo yesh is chachus klal. And without it, there's nothing. There would not be this chiddush, this innovation. Also be'erich, like it says elsewhere at length. That means that the mitzias hayesh is similar to God, essence of God that exists, that doesn't exist like an existential existence. Let me explain what this line means. I'm going to stop 3 lines from here because this deserves its own. This is heavy stuff. Basically,
it's on 20 years.
Yeah, this is. Other places explains this at length. Essentially, this goes back to a few things. He says 2 main things to explain this. One thing is ischachus. What means ischachus? So this goes back to our discussion before. Who put the first ball of gas there? There's something about existence that testifies that was not always here. That something put it here. One I mentioned was the design. Like there's no way that a book was written by itself. There's no way such beauty can be created by itself. All the explanations. At the end of the day, it does. Because ein dover esas atzmei.
Also, things we rot, they deteriorate.
I'm going to get to that in a second. 1 second. That's 1 second. So therefore, there's a certain hischachus by nature that existence testifies almost I don't must exist. Even though in our hergish, I said before, we feel we must exist, but that's already an emotional thing. That's not because logically, the mind will tell you don't must exist because if I wasn't born, the world wouldn't be very different. And right now, the baby's being born and you don't know if it makes a difference or not. So, like I said, there's nothing in reality that states it must exist. It doesn't have that type of truth to it. And the second thing you just said, which brought Chassidus, that the fact that it dies tells you that even while it's there, it's dying. It tells you even while it's there, it's negligible. Again, I'm not talking about the neshama, I'm not talking about God's purpose. We're talking about purely physical reality. The definition of physical reality. So Chassidus brings what's called mayim chaim. When you need to tumas mes, certain impurities, you need live water. Live water means a live spring that's connected to its source, it's flowing, like the Arizal's mikveh, for example. A mikveh that we use often, a regular mikveh, is dead water, meaning it's disconnected from its source, it's rainwater, it's been stored, it has its power, but it cannot be mitayr every purity. There's every impurity. What's mayim chaim? So the Mishnah says in Parah, when it talks about these laws, it says that noras hamachazvim, which means a river or a spring, that what's called noras hamachazv means it's not real. What means a non-real river? Meaning it's right now, it's connected. Right. Like the sheker chazav emes, chazav. Yeah, I use not real because it's not complete sheker or whatever. It's like deceptive, you can call it even. So it says, how do you know what's noras hamachazv? So it says any spring that dries up within 7 years is called. So even right now, that means you can't. Basically, if you discover a new spring, you have to wait 7 years and see it being flowing. After the 7th year is over, you can celebrate and say you got yourself a mayim chaim. Basically, that's the halach.
It dries up on the 8th year.
Yeah, correct. Because 7, that's the Rebbe brings it, because 7 is considered a cycle, etc. Because listen, api halach, you have to give it there's a term. Obviously, if it dries up after 8, it also the logic it also shows you it wasn't really alive. But halacha says 7. The Torah is kaveya. 7 means that the chazaka is going to go on because 7 is a full cycle, etc., etc. But that's a technicality. That doesn't change. The Torah could have said 70 years. You have to be practical. You wait 70 years, we're not going to have any mayim chaim. So Torah, God put into the system. Remember, God decides whether it's going to stay alive or not. So basically, something that is kaveya 7 years means that it says, and it's not only we say also olam for yovel. There are things that are called forever if they pass a certain period in time. That's already halacha categorization. That's not relevant to the logic of it. The logic of it is basically.
That's part of the structure. In other words, if you toivel and a minute later it dries up, you say
you don't hear what I'm saying.
No, I'm not sure.
No, because you're thinking while I was answering you. That's why. Because you're not listening to my answer.
As long as it lasts for 7 years, I see the mayim chaim. It does it.
Torah is kaveya that 7 means that God will keep it forever. The fact that it dries up, it's an aberration. Let's put it this way.
It will purify the
Right. The point is that Chassidus brings from this the mashal that something that's going to die at the end means even in the beginning it's dead. Essentially. Tinik mishanel maschil ishav. Exactly. The b'chai. So bottom line is, I'm adding a new thing. So besides the fact that existence testifies, like if you go to the first ball of gas, even if you could demonstrate that existence will go on forever, they say the sun is going to die at the end. But let's say for argument's sake, Chazakim Kiyemi Badam, we learned this also, that God put into it that it's forever. But Yesh Le'Tchila for sure. That's the point. Now, that fact also has Yesh Sof, that even stronger demonstration that its beginning is weak. It's basically two elements. What I'm describing is in the Chiddush of existence. So it's being that there's a Schachus in it. So he says, this Schachus, you can't call a real Metzias. Because if it's real, why isn't it there always? Why will it last forever? So he said that means that its real power is the Koyach HaMechadish. So what is the Yesh? When you think about the Yesh now, this pathetic, pitiful Yesh is a Metzias, built in Metzias Nimtz. It exists, but it has nothing in it. I'm not going to use the example that some Chassidim used, a certain organ in the body, when they would call somebody, but it's the same thing. It exists, but it has nothing. No substance. It's like an arrogant guy that's blowing and blust from zich. And when you're like this, you see there's nothing behind it. Like in the Wizard of Oz. Remember the wizard?
No meat and bones.
Huh?
No meat and bones.
Right.
But again, it shows the quality of.
Oh, yeah. So what kind of strange Metzias is this? A Metzias that has nothing and it thinks it's a whole thing? So he says that's Metzias. That's an example, a taste of Metzias built in Metzias Nimtz. Instead, even our Shvachkeit, Chassidus turns into. So next time you think about how lowly you are, you say, hey, this is like, lowly. But that's really what it comes down to. It's a very fascinating insight.
Is that why the brought about Tzkias amazing going to be brought so for the?
I'm not sure what you mean. Why are you saying that?
It's not that we die, but really we're not. It's a contradiction. It shows.
Okay, maybe. I never thought of it that way. That's possible. So you get it. Okay. So Metzius, so we have Metzius Atzmus within us, the Yesh feeling, basically. See, this to me is the epitome of Chassidus as opposed to Musar. Because not only is it saying Gadlos HaKeil and not Shiflos Adam, but it's saying even the negative things about us is rooted in Atzmus itself. See, if a Baal Musar would say the Yesh, or that you think you're somebody, that type of, you're nobody. It would be about destroying us and saying you're nobody and who do you think you are, etc., etc. And Chassidus says, you know something? These elements come from Atzmus itself. That's why it's so paradoxical.
Nobody.
So it takes so even you're the weakest part of our existence, meaning that the root of all our problems is rooted also in Atzmus. You could also blame Atzmus for all this, which I know love to do. And you got an agenda. I know the Neira Lila B'nei Adam is your thing. Once you heard that, you're off the hook, right?
I think we all have it.
And that's why you love Chassidus so much.
How about Cadman? Cadman was also in front.
But the way you say it like this: before you get to Neira Lila, you have to be very responsible, and then you're off the hook.
Abstract and Todayus.
Yeah, abstract.
Cadman, though.
Cadman, what?
You basically describe the two qualities.
I would say Kadman is a direct. He said Kadman comes from Atzmus. We feel we're a Kadman in that way. That's the emotional Kadman we feel. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's that to me is like Mitzvah Atzmus. Yeah. Okay, let me just go through. So 1 second. Let's just this. V'zeh b'ployit tamim dayim kol yochli is barach li is davar b'dugmas Atzmus. You hear what's going on here? In the parentheses. Tamim dayim. This is from the wonders, from the word tamia, yeah? The wonders, tamim as in tamimus. It's an expression. We play
Shleimus of Deus, tamim dayim.
Yeah. From the wonders of the I guess, the omnipotent, divine, Kol Yochli is Baruch, to create something that's similar to Atzmus. This you had to add because of course, that's the obvious question.
The animals also feel that they're.
I would not say that. No. I think animals are aware of their mortality, but much more than we are. I mean, I never interviewed them. Huh?
Where do you get it?
First of all, because the animals are just like stones and tables. They just happen to have a life force. But their life force, because they never, first of all, never waver. If they were so selfish like us, they would be creating plenty of problems. So they're definitely not selfish. They're completely dedicated to their thing. So to me, it seems like they know their instructions all the time. It means they sense their source. I mean, we do whatever we want. We think we're self-made. So I see it from the result. Not that I ever spoke to an animal about it, but I see from the result that they don't mess anything up. They do what they're told. So how do they know that? Why don't we do what we're told? Because we feel we're separate. Emotionally, intellectually, we understand that Metzius is weak. I think both of them. I think they don't have the Metzius built in Mitzvah, and they don't have the Metzius in Atzmus. That's what I'm convinced of that. I see from their behavior. They would not be. Look at us, because we can't do anything right. They do everything right. Look, if you have a counter argument, let's say it. But
Okay, you can. There's no sense of it.
Like they will always. There's no such thing as a mother. I'm knowing that there are different type of creatures, but a mother that's natural to protect its young, for generations, you will not find one shift. They'll do exactly the same thing to protect their young. We parents can screw up our children. What does that mean? That means we're not following even our natural self. That means that we have some type of disconnect. I know you can call it free will, fine, but it's coming from some type of sense that we can just do what we want. Can you imagine a penguin deciding to go out for the night and forgetting to come home to its children? It doesn't happen. I'm just saying, it's not even possible. I know it sounds weird, but it just tells us how messed up we are, or how powerful we are, if you wish. Yeah. To me, the animals are like malachim. They're following the rules. the program tells you this is what you do, this is what you do. So they're definitely aware of rules. Whether they're conscious of it, not conscious, doesn't matter. You see their behavior. They're like the clock. It's like the sun and the moon. Except they have more life force and they have a certain intelligence, etc., whatever it may be.
What about the animals jumping the same people?
I knew you were going to ask me something. But first of all, if anything, it's a Yotzer min haklal. And trust me, train a lion to protect yourself. You're going to keep your eyes open, okay? You train a hen, it's going to go back to its natural thing at one point or another. Obviously, you can train. And listen, God created animals, and animals are subordinate to humans. So we can use them. Horses are very, very loyal. But that's training also as part of their programming is to listen. Planet of the Apes is the apes rising up against man. There's a series of. I'm going to do 3 more lines. The imkain hari hisavus meira lamitis. No, it's finishing now. So imkain ebazei hisavus, creation itself, meira shows on amitis atzmusi yisbarach, on the true essence of the divine. V'zein Elokei Olam. That's Elokei Olam. Shu inyan beira Olam. That's beira Olam, the creator. The b'shem zeh anu yechel nechanese. In this name you can call him. V'uhamed al amitis Atzmus. And this shows on the truth of Atzmus, on the true Atzmus. Bottom line, he said, Moyer you can't call him, but Elokei Olam you could call him. So Elokei Olam means beira Olam, like Baruch Shamar v'hoya Olam or v'hoya Olam. So we'll stop here, middle of chapter 72. I think it's a good place to stop, a lot to absorb.
Is that like Keo Olam? Elokei Olam? Is that Keo Olam?
I don't know necessarily. One second. Let me just say, we did the beginning of Discourse 19, page 134, 135.